Ready to go?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I apologize. We were tied in a closed session a little bit longer, and actually, I guess we need to adjourn from the special meeting.
Report out.
Yeah, we need to report out.
Okay, okay, first, Matt, would you like
Yes,
to
thank you,
report
Mr.
out?
Chair. The Board of Supervisors met in closed session to discuss agenda item number 1 on today's special meeting agenda. The board met and conferred in closed session and conferred with its labor negotiators. Those negotiators designated representatives are Allison Hauk, Ray Espinoza, Joe Paul Gonzalez, Melinda Casillas, Georgia Cochran, and Darren Thompson. The employee organizations involved were Institutions Association, Law Enforcement Management, Management Employees Group, SEIU Local 529, the General Unit Employees, SEIU United Long-Term Care Workers Local 6434, the Deputy Sheriff's Association, confidential management, department heads, and the unrepresented employees. The authority to meet can be found in California Government Code Section 54957.6. At this time, the board took no reportable action. Thank you.
Thank you. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Now, I'd like to welcome everybody to our regular meeting for the Board of Supervisors for January 20th. If you'll stand with me, we'll be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Supervisor Rivas.
Ready, salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag.
I would entertain a motion to acknowledge certificate of posting.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second?
Okay. Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. With that, we will move on to the board reorganization. I would entertain a motion for the election of the chair of the Board of Supervisors.
Mr. Chair, I make a recommendation that I nominate Margie Barrios as chair for 2015.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Actually, are there any other nominations?
Motion to
Please.
close nomination?
All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Passes 5-0. With that, I would be happy to vacate my seat.
You want to change seats
I would
here?
be happy to vacate my seat.
It is 5 minutes to make this change.
5 minutes.
I'll change the drawers later. Yeah, yeah. And before we move forward with the nomination for vice chair, I would like to present, if you could go to the podium, please, Mr. Former Chair. We'd like to present you with a plaque. On behalf of the Board of Supervisors, we would like to present you, we are honored to present you, Jerry Munzer, in appreciation for your countless hours, your dedicated service to the County of San Benito. And we are very proud of the accomplishments that you have done, and we have supported you in 2014. So there you go. Thank you.
I just want to thank my fellow board members for this year. It was a very interesting year. All the hard work that you did, staff, Ray, Matt, Denise, all of you, and everybody that has come to our meetings and sat through them. Some of them were very long, and we just really appreciate everybody in this opportunity to serve San Benito County. Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll move forward with the nominations, open nominations, and conduct the elections for vice chair of the board.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we nominate Supervisor Robert Rivas for vice chair.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any other
Nomination for close.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, congratulations, Supervisor Rivas. Okay, we'll move on to receive committee assignments for the newly elected chair. That is me. And if, I don't know if you've been handed those committee assignments, but if you have not, do we have them? You know what, Denise, we can do that afterwards. I will do that during the board chair, board announcements. Okay. So we'll move forward. But first of all, I want to say that, wish everybody a Happy New Year, and tell you that I'm very honored to sit here in the position of chair and representing the county of San Benito. I want to thank the board for the confidence that you have expressed in me. I will, hopefully, will be able to work together with all of you as we have in the past. We don't always agree, but we always have the utmost respect for each other and get a lot of things done in our positions. I also want to say that there's a great deal of work ahead for all of us, as we well know, but we could not do this work without the support of our department heads, without the support of staff. We wouldn't be able to do the work that we do. So I want to thank them at this time for everything that they do for us. And when we go into the committees and commission appointments, I will talk a little bit more of some of the decisions that I have made. So we'll move forward with the rest of the agenda at this time. So I would like to be able to present a certificate of recognition to my brother Mike Sanchez at this time. If you could come up to the podium, please. And I will entertain a motion to approve the certificates that we're going to present to Mike and to Jim West. Is Jim here today?
Yeah,
He's in there, back
Yes.
there.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. My brother, you're so deserving of this recognition, and I want to give you a big hug for everything that you have done. It is an honor to be here presenting this award. There's no greater honor for me than to be able to do this for my brother. Mama would be so proud, as she always was. And if she were here today, I know she'd be sitting at the front row with us. I know that you shy away from a lot of fanfare, as you always have. But I figured, you know, I left out the trumpets, I left up the drum roll, and I told myself, well, you know, what can he do? Send me to the principal's office? I don't think so. But anyway, like I said, I'm very honored to do this, and what we have done also, after I present you with a certificate, is that I have asked representatives of the California Assembly, Assemblyman Luis Alejo, to present you. If they're not here today, you will be getting something later. Oh, you're here. Thank you so much. And I have also asked State Senator Anthony Canella's office to also present you with a certificate of recognition. And you will be getting a U.S. congressional recognition from Congressman Farr, but we do have a representative here also to recognize you. So you have done so much, so much for this community, for students, for parents. The list is long of the accomplishments that he has had. 3 or 4 years as a teacher, over 40 years of education, including 27 years as a school principal. 2 years as the director of alternative ed for San Benito County Office of Education. 2 years as assistant superintendent for County Office of Education. Numerous assignments, Rotary Club, Pop Warner. He is the voice of the Baylors, announces the games and has for, over 25 years. Very recognizable voice. He received a lot of honors from the CCEA, the AXA, Elks Distinguished Citizenship Award, Baylor Hall of Fame, Man of the Year for Mexican American Committee on Education, Hollister Youth Alliance Hero Award. Like I said, the list goes on, but the greatest accomplishment that you have ever made is the success of the many students that you have, lives that you have touched, the parents of those children, the way you have influenced them and impacted them in such a way that their education continued beyond your leadership. So I want to thank you for that. You're a great person, and I love you.
Thank you.
And here's your certificate of recognition presented to you, Mike Sanchez, for all the things that I have listed, for over 40 years of outstanding dedication and service to education and the youth of the community, with profound gratitude from the Board of Supervisors of San Benito County. And if I could have the other representatives that are here step up now before I offer them mic to mic.
Thank
How you doing?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I guess, can you hear me? Can you hear me all right? I've never been accused of not being able to be heard, so. My name is Daniel Dodge. I am here today on behalf of Assemblyman Luis Alejo and representing the 30th Assembly District. It's our honor and our pleasure. There will be a state resolution coming down your way from both houses of the legislature, but we wanted to be able to be here today to be able to recognize. Sometimes we don't take the time to honor community heroes in our city, our community, our county, and everybody remembers the best teacher, and everybody remembers the worst teacher, and everything in between tends to fall to the wayside. But I think that that the impact that you've touched on lives and generations of students here in San Benito County has just added to the quality of what makes Hollister such a special place. So we wanted to be able to come today, Mike, to be able to thank you, to honor you, to be able to be present, because retirement just means more work, from what I understand. Now you have time. Now you have time to do all those things, and I'm sure that there's a whole list of things that everybody else has ready for you.
I've got a list.
So once again, on behalf of the State Assembly, we wanted to be able to present you the certificate of recognition today, and to be able to acknowledge all your great accomplishments that you've in the past, and look forward to all the great accomplishments in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
That way they know I'm here today. They'll say, why isn't he answering his phone?
Are we there? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It means a lot to me. Truly, truly does.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Madam.
sir.
Congratulations, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And I don't know if the other representatives are here, but if they're not, they will be. They're coming.
Not to worry.
You will get
Not
those
to worry.
resolutions,
Not to
and if you
worry.
could step up to them, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, Marge, I want to say thank you. Thank you a whole bunch. She read that exactly how I wrote it earlier today. So thank you for not missing any other words. I appreciate that a whole bunch. Well, first and foremost, what I probably need to do, and I'd be remiss if I didn't, of course, you know my sister Margie. My sister Mary Lou is also here. Mary Lou Andrade is here. Of course, the lady with the camera right here. Some of you don't know her, some of you do know her. That's my wife, Linda. And also, a big surprise today, not knowing he was going to be here. It's my son right here, Mr. Rick Sanchez, is right here in the house. Rick, thank you. And I'd like for you to give that guy a round of applause for me. I'll take just a minute to say thank you. It means a whole bunch to me. Margie touched on that last line that she used about students. That's the most important part right there. I will never stop being a youth advocate. I will continue working on some initiatives that I've been involved with. I also plan on getting involved in a couple other areas, some of you I've talked to about already, and I hope to be able to continue to provide service. You know, I had read something that said that I dreamed and dreamed that about life being happiness, and then I woke up and I realized that that life is about service. Then I realized that in service you find happiness. And I think people in here, Board of Supervisors, thank you so much for all that you do, all the other public servants, and those of you from the community that are here. Everybody does their part. We always want to remember that nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. And it takes every single one of us. People say that I've retired. One of the answers that I have is that I really have not retired. Reality is, I simply added 5 days to my weekend. That's all that I did. All right? So on that note, I want to thank everybody for the recognition. It means a lot to me coming from you folks, because I know what you guys do. Don't know everything that you do, but I know how hard you work. Every single one of you in this building, and every single one of you in all the other buildings surrounding, people in the city, all over. If we don't make it happen, then who is? So thank you very much. Have a great day. Enjoy yourselves. Have a good time.
Okay, we'll move on to another certificate of recognition. Oh, okay, thank you. Do I get a prize? Do I share? You can. I can. I'll decide when I look at it. Okay. All right, and if I could have Supervisor Botello to invite Jim West up to the podium.
Hi, Jim. Anyway, Jim West, I can't say enough nice things about this man. And I did say a few at the last meeting, but we felt, the board and our staff felt it's appropriate to present you a certificate of recognition for your service on the Parks and Recreation. And Jim has been on this commission for 8 years. 8 years since its conception. And, you know, what makes a community complete is a number of components. You got to have good education for your young people, opportunities. You have to have public safety. You have to have a community that's vibrant with economic growth. And just as important for quality of a community is its parks and recreation. And Jim has been dedicated for 8 years to see that through, that we have good parks in our county, that we have a plan going forward for the future for the next 50 years. And I've been so proud to count him as a friend the entire time I've been on the board, and even longer than that. But more importantly to the county, he was a dedicated commissioner. And we're losing him to the city of San Juan. He's a new councilman. He's doing a fine job there, and San Juan's the better of it. So, Jim, I want to present you with the certificate of recognition and a free T-shirt for the Parks and Rec Samuel County. You have to retire to get one. Congratulations, Jim.
Thank you very much.
And good luck in your endeavors with the city of San Juan.
Let's be real quick here. First thing, we've been working on River Parkway since the early 90s. And we finally got it into a park system. We've got an EIR on it. We've got it done. It's a real sense of achievement I have to get it this far from zero up to it. I feel somewhat, I don't feel bad about leaving the Parks and Rec Commission, because Valerie Eglin, who's sitting in the audience, is going to take the place. She's been involved with parks for a couple, 3 years now, so she's coming on full speed. She's going to do as good a job as I did, and I feel that we're leaving in good hands. So I don't think I'm just leaving it. I'm leaving it in good hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, we're going to take a little break so we can make the proper changes up here, and we'll resume our meeting in just 5 minutes before after these changes, we'll come back for public comment. So.
are swear here, I'll give you your little foot thing.
Thank you, sir, for coming. I call and you answer.
So you owe me one.
I owe you one.
By committee. Here you go, by committee. Sorry. Margie, here's one by committee as well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, but you're the only one to get the water. I don't know if anybody else likes water.
Oh,
You know, it's,
This is mine?
it's not mine.
I didn't bring mine.
Oh,
I mean, I gave it to Nathaniel.
I think you brought it back then. You
Oh,
must
he
have
didn't bring my case, okay. That's fine.
It's not mine.
Okay, no problem.
Do you want your little calendar? Comes off whether it stays on again.
Wake up.
well, gotta be a load off your shoulders. That was a tough time to have it, chair and the elections.
He'll come back. I'm sorry. We'll go back. I'll do it. Oh, okay.
Hey, same difference. Oh, I haven't been here in a long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's it? On my 40? All time.
Okay, we're waiting for our CAO as soon as he steps in, and I believe that is him. And we're going to resume our Board of Supervisors meeting. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here today. We'll move on to public comments. If there's anybody here that would like to address the board on items that are not on the agenda, you may do so at this time. Denise, do we have any?
Yes, we do. Andy, Ron?
Good morning, Chairperson Barrios, members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is Andy Shaw-Coron. I live in 501 Ricardo Drive in Romas. I'm commenting about the issue of, I would call it fiscal responsibility. A few months ago, I was here, and Supervisor Barrios raised the issue of the couple of $1,000s that we had to pay that we hadn't anticipated for an electric car that was given to us, basically. And this Friday, I was at a hearing in Monterey in front of the Superior Court where the judge confirmed a negotiated agreement where our county is responsible for $262,500 to the Center for Biological Diversity, which sued our county when we approved the Citadel Indian project without proper environmental impact review. This is my concern. Being open, an open door to business is not the same thing as being a doormat. And sometimes when we agree to do things without thinking about it too much, it costs quite a bit. Now, it may very well be that Citadel Exploration will fulfill their indemnification agreement, which they signed with our county, and we won't be out $262,500, but it raises a couple of questions. One, if we believed when they signed it that they really didn't have the resources to indemnify us then we should never have given them the approval to go forward, because that's a lot of money in a relatively strapped county. If we believed that they did, if they represented that they did have enough money to indemnify us, and maybe now they don't, then we ought to be thinking about contacting the district attorney's office, because that would be fraud. And so I think as we move forward and deal with the aftermath of Measure J, I think we should have very open discussions about the choices that we make, because democracy and accountability withers behind closed doors. Thank you.
John Wolgamott?
Madam Chair, distinguished board members, most of you know me. I'm John Wolgamott. I'm one of the residentially challenged of Hollister. Recently, I came into the information that the city and the county got its homeless grant. You already own property up on Southside Boulevard. Why not demo the existing hospital up there and build a new barracks up there for the homeless? You've got a workforce going on out here. There is a percentage of them that are employed, but they won't stay at the shelter. Because what happens is, every year you have the same problem. Get drugs smuggled in there, you get people drunk, they don't want to stay quiet, so the guys that are working stay in their tents. We can make a multiple phase working man's program. That becomes transitional housing, not a shelter. You actually will take people, present pride to them, and they will take off on their own. Most of us aren't asking for a handout, we're asking for a hand up, out of the gutter, onto the curbside. We'll take off down the sidewalk on our own, okay, if you give us that chance. Olympia, Washington has a mini home community that they have homeless in. It is actually presenting a bit of pride. These people are trying to work, trying to find jobs on their own. I know we're in an economy where it's kind of hard to work. But you know, most of us will take anything. We'll take day work. We'll take whatever we can get to make our money. We are honest, most of us. I'd say look into these. My girlfriend's son recently moved to Oregon. He's working up there. They have converted old hotels into mini apartments, and they have made them accessible, and they have made them affordable for the homeless. Consider this. That's all I ask. Thank you for your time.
John, we don't normally respond to public comment, but I want to thank you for your perspective on the homeless situation, and we welcome you.
Thank you.
I've got a speaker card from Mark Patton and Michael Silverman.
Madam Chair and Board, I'm Mark Patton. I'm the new SEIU president for the Local 521 chapter. I'm just here to introduce myself and Michael Silverman, who's the newly elected vice president, and we just want to introduce ourselves, myself again, because I know some of you from before, and just look forward to a couple years of working well with you, hoping to shore up what's going on in our county with our employees and work conditions and everything we're trying to get. So nice to see you again, and good job on acknowledging Mike Sanchez. Good man. You want to add?
Yeah. I'd like to add to the comments that Mark made. This is we're newly elected. We're elected for 2-year terms, and Mark and I are really excited about moving forward and the job that we have. And I just wanted to remind everybody that we do this. We're volunteers, and we do this because we enjoy what we do for the county. We enjoy being public servants, and it's an exciting work for us, and we enjoy the challenge of representing our union and moving forward.
Thank you. See you
Thank you.
soon.
Thank you.
Marvin Jones?
Thank you. Madam Chair, congratulations.
Thank you.
You're quite, and Mr. Rivas, Vice Chair, board members, I hope you had a good new year, and may the next year be constructive for the county. I almost said prosperous, but that implies you increase taxes. So may you have a constructive new year. Saw a couple of lawmen sitting on the third row back here. Thank you. When you get your budget studies started, you might consider increasing them. They are very short-handed, and we need all the help we can get. So keep that in mind when you do your budgets. There's only so much that can go around, and you've got a lot of pies to slice it up, and good luck for it. And maybe this will be the year of the general plan. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
Mary Shaw Coran.
Thank you. Congratulations, Madam Chair, on your new position, and good morning, supervisors. Thank you for the opportunity. I just wanted to share with you, as a member of Samuel Rising, some good news. We just learned last week that our group has been awarded a $25,000 grant. And we had been working hard on this grant, as well as fundraising for a Measure J legal defense fund. The reason we've raised almost $30,000 in the past 2 months. The reason I wanted to mention this is because we had a meeting back in December with a couple of supervisors, our attorneys, and Mr. Granger to discuss Measure J. And some of the comments, there concerned me. For example, that Mr. Granger mentioned that he had spoken to the oil industry attorneys, and they had promised to bury our county with lawsuits, and that these suits would bankrupt our county. I wanted to let the board know that Samuel Rising members, and we feel there's a lot of other folks too. In fact, there's one major donor to our campaign who assured me in a meeting about a week and a half ago that she was going to make substantial donations toward a legal defense fund as well. I wanted to assure the supervisors that the Measure J supporters are not irresponsible. I know that there were concerns made at this meeting back in December about the burden to the county. We did not pass Measure J to create a burden for the county. We really feel that Measure J would enhance the quality of life for the people of this county. And our members have been noting that after the passage of Measure J, we have been hearing thank yous from so many people. And we think that this feeling is very prevalent. And we do not feel that in the long run, this will be burdened. There could be, some challenges. And we want to assure the supervisors that Samuel Rising members are prepared to do all we can to raise as much money as we can. We raised $150,000 for our campaign last fall in the space of about 3 months. And we are very confident that we can raise the amount of money to substantially defer the county's legal burden, especially if the county is going to mount a legal defense. And that is our concern at this point, is whether the county is prepared to do that. But I wanted to share with you the good news, which is that we are on our way to raising a substantial amount of money. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Any other speakers for public comment? If not, we'll move on to department head announcements. Our CAO will call up.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we do have a few announcements coming out of administration. The first one I'd like to announce is the joint fiber project that we had going on last year. We actually completed it in December, and we had to get that completed because our charter franchise agreement ended in 2014 of December. So the cost to continue services with a different carrier were about $1 million over a 5-year period, which were just too much because we weren't paying anything for many years. So we decided to go ahead and build a fiber ring. That was done. Public Works, I want to thank them, as well as the information technology Technology Department did a lot of work on that, as well as with the city. It was a joint effort. So we're basically going to save about $600,000 over a 5-year period, and they're beyond that as well, many hundreds of thousands of dollars. So thank you very much. The second one is another project that was a milestone for our county. It was the ERP project, the Enterprise Resource Planning System. That also went live. The first start date was December 22nd, the first pay period of this year, 2015. Tremendous effort went in with that. New World, they worked very diligently with staff. We had payroll, HR, we had IT staff, and many other staff members that actually worked a lot of hours on that. They actually worked the holiday to get that project done. So very good project, very little errors actually with the first rollout with our payroll. So it was a good thing, and I wanted to congratulate everybody on their hard work for that. The third item I have is I've been asked to pull item number 6 from our consent agenda. We'd like to discuss that in consent or on the consent items. Basically, we have the Mexican consulate representatives here, and they wanted to introduce themselves, so we wanted to pull that off and have that happen this morning. So that's all the announcements that we have.
Okay, thank you. And congratulations on the ERP. I noticed the change even in our check stubs. They were so much easier to understand and read. And so we already benefited from that change. So best wishes on
Wait a minute,
moving
that made
forward.
the difference, because when I really found out how much they were taking away from
It was clear, wasn't it? Okay, we'll move on to board announcements, and I'll start off with our vice chair, Supervisor Rivas.
I have no comments.
Okay.
I want to wish everyone, I'd like just to wish everyone Happy New Year, and look forward to working with my colleagues on the board for another year.
Supervisor De La Cruz?
My only comments are congratulations, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Supervisor Rios, congratulations as being vice chair. And, let's continue to work for the betterment of our community. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Munzer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to wish everyone a Happy New Year's, and you, congratulations, and
Thank you.
a successful year. Mr. Jones brought up an issue that I regret to say I promised this time last year that we would have a general plan done. It is not. Supervisor Rivas and I were coming back, I believe, from ANBAG meeting, and I said, when you're chair, hopefully the general plan will finally be done. In all seriousness, I'm wondering, Madam Chair, if we can have that agendized for one of the meetings in February to have an update on the general plan, because I was truly expecting at least the EIR to have gone out before the end of last year, and it didn't happen, so I would like to hear where we are.
Okay,
with
so
the general
noted.
plan.
CEO?
So noted.
Okay,
Thank
very
you.
good. Supervisor Botello?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Congratulations on your opportunity for 2015. I'm sure this board has accomplished a lot and will be very successful for San Bernardino County.
Thank you.
And I want to wish everybody a Happy New Year. Hopefully it will be prosperous and healthy. And I know I'm looking forward to 2015. I think things are getting quite a bit better than what they've been in the past. I also want to thank former Chair Supervisor Jerry Munzer for a really outstanding year. It's hard, to talk about things that you had hoped to accomplish, and I admire the supervisor for pointing out something that he really hoped to have got done, but things sometimes don't work out. But to run the chairmanship and also a successful campaign for his reelection is very, very difficult, and he did it with the utmost integrity, and that shouldn't be surprising to anybody. And I want to thank you for a very successful year. And also echoing Supervisor Munzer's concerns about the general plan, that really has to get done. I know yeah, I think it's being circulated amongst our staff, and we need to stay on track at all costs and have no further delays. And I think that, all of us on the dais really expect that to happen. And I also want to support Supervisor Munzer having an item for an update, hopefully at our next meeting.
Yeah, I think February the 3rd is a request.
Yeah, that's
so-
correct. We'll put it on the February 3rd meeting.
And I have two other items, Madam Chair. The homeless shelter, which the Intergovernmental Committee has been working on, and I've been, informed on some of the site locations being part of the Facilities Committee with the chair. And I believe that's be a report back to the full board for a decision as far as the location. And Southside Road is one of the locations that's being evaluated by our staff. And hopefully we can make a recommendation to go forward with that very generous grant for a facility and start moving forward, because I think that will improve the quality of life not only for the folks that, how did you say that?
Residentially challenged.
I'm going to remember that, residentially challenged. I think that's a good way of putting it.
If I could say something real quick.
No, at this
sorry.
time, John, I'm sorry, but we we don't.
Called residentially challenged.
We're going to continue from the dais. Thank you.
Yes, residentially challenged folks, and, there's, locations that we've been looking at, McCloskey, but Southside Road is certainly high up on the list, which will bring forward some staff recommendations along with the Facilities Committee to the full board for a position on that. And last, we had a COG meeting last week. Had a report on Highway 25. Personally, I'm a little disappointed with the Caltrans presentation, and as far as the evaluation of the alternative is still in their minds alternative 2, which is a $300 million project, in which this community would have to find some way to pay for that. My colleague Supervisor Munzer, who's also on COG, could maybe elaborate as well. We would like to try to have a design project that's utilizing the current 2 lanes and footprint and just adding another 2 lanes to meet the needs of this community and its growth in the coming years. And we believe that would be at a substantially lower cost. We're going to continue to work on this, Madam Chair, and along with the city, it's a high priority. Also, I did point out in director's reports that at this time, beginning of the year, I'm happy that our Public Works Director is here. We have a serious problem with our roads. Besides our highway system, our roads, our county roads, arteries are in disrepair. And somehow the county, the cities have to work together, figure out a way that we could do a little bit more than pothole repair, but have a program for chip sealing, and also overlays. And if we don't figure this thing out, we're going to have a mess on our hands. And the only thing that has saved us through the years recently is the drought. That's the only benefit that I could have seen from it. But I challenge this board, our staff, to try to, we got to prioritize which roads need to be maintained and start a program of really emphasizing that and trying to receive some funding for that. And it may come, and we should discuss some sort of joint sales tax with the two cities and the county to help maintain our investment in our roads. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and the two items that you mentioned are high on my list, which I'll be talking about briefly here in a minute. My announcement is that Keala Farms, George Keala Farms, they had a groundbreaking ceremony at their new location on Fairview Road. They will have an incredible state-of-the-art agricultural produce, facility, plant that will be a great asset to San Benito County. They will be hiring probably over 100 people. When they build out, it could be as many as 500. Great asset for San Benito County in much need of jobs. So the county is going to benefit, and our ag dollars, production dollars, hopefully will be increased as well. Now I'll go on to the committee appointments. I didn't talk about it earlier, so now that I'm a little more prepared. There were a few changes that I made to the committees and commissions, with the expectation that the supervisors appointed to their respective, committees and commissions continue to serve as they have in the best interest of our county and its residents. I know a lot of people expected me to make significant changes to COG. I did not, and I have not done that for two reasons. Number one is that the makeup of this board remains the same after the election of 2014. I respect the decision that the majority of the board made back in the earlier part of 2014, so we will maintain the same members that were appointed at that time. I sincerely believe that Supervisor Munzer and Supervisor Botello, who will continue to serve on COG, have committed to the direction that this board has asked, and that they will expeditiously address the Highway 25 issues, which I believe you are committed to, as well as the rest of us are. We understand the seriousness of it and the priority. Adding to it, we want to add it to the constrained list, as we have already expressed by resolution, this county and the city of Hollister, and that we identify the funding mechanisms that are needed to improve it, whatever that may be. Even if we have to use private money to do this, there may be an opportunity to do that. We need to take advantage of it to get it done. So we will keep Highway 25 in the forefront and make great strides in the planning process and the ability to improve it. As important in 2015 is the adoption of our general plan. I agree with all of you that that is really high on the list. We have accepted a new timeline, and we did this at the latter part of the year. Any change to that is not acceptable. So I appreciate that you want to put it on the agenda for next meeting, and we need to really get into the nitty-gritty of it and what we have to do to move this forward quickly. We will be making every effort to find ways to provide our departments with much-needed staff to better serve our residents. As we all know, our staff is working on skeleton crew, and that is not acceptable, but we know that the reasons have been budgetary reasons, but we will try to think outside the box and figure out how we can provide the necessary staff that they need for service. There's so many areas of need in this county, but we have to focus on one of the county's greatest needs, and that is our roads. So thank you for bringing that up. I had planned to talk about it. We do need a plan. We need to figure out how we're going to improve them, how we're going to keep them from deteriorating even more than they already are. The governor recognizes the lack of resources. At his level, he is going to promises to make every effort to see how funding can trickle down to counties so that we can improve them. I believe at the state level, we're about $58 billion short of monies to improve the needed work for bridges and for our roads, our highways. And so very high on our list. Attracting business and tourism will always be high on my list. It has been, and I will continue to make that a priority. We need business, we need tourism for the sustainability of San Benito County, for people to have jobs, to be able to live the American dream. We need to be able to provide that for them. And the only way we can do that is if this board commits to making sure that we attract business, commercial, whatever it may be, green energy, green business, we need to make a greater effort to move towards that end. So we live in a beautiful county, and the quality of life has to remain, has to be, continue to be as beautiful as it is, and the only way that we can do that is by providing greater jobs or more opportunity for work. So with that being said, I want to thank all of you. I look forward to working with you, and I know that 2015 is going to be a very successful year if we have the same goals. So thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Can I interrupt for a moment? I'm not sure on your committee list, does it address the LAFCO membership?
Let's see.
I have it on my list.
I see it on mine,
Okay.
let's see. Yes.
Okay, the executive officer, Bob Braitman, sent an email out requesting that it be clear that if Supervisor Rivas is going to be appointed as the regular member, that the board confirm that appointment through March 1st, 2015, which is when the term ends, or in the alternative, Madam Chair, you can appoint both Supervisor Botello and Supervisor Rivas as the permanent, or not the permanent, the LAFCO committee members through March 1st, 2019, and that would take care of the next 4 years.
Okay, so I thought it was done by appointment yearly. So that means that the next chair will not be able to make changes?
Apparently, the LAFCO commissioners are appointed for a 4-year term. And once that term has been appointed, then the commissioner is entitled to serve that term. Now, the current term ends March 1st, 2015. So you could appoint up to March 1st, 2015, and then reconsider if you want who will go for the next 4 years, or you can appoint Supervisor Botello and Rivas for a 4-year term.
Okay, at this time, not having known that, that was the case, I will go ahead and appoint just to March 2015, and then we'll bring it back.
Okay, so your appointment then is of Supervisor Robert Rivas to March 1st, 2015.
Yes,
Okay, thank
that
you.
is correct. Okay? Is that clear? All right. Thank you. So now we'll move on. We're going to adjourn, and I will accept a motion to adjourn from the Board of Supervisors and reconvene as the Board of Directors of San Benito County Financing Corporation.
So moved, Madam Chair.
There's a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are now convening as the San Benito County Financing Corporation. And the first item on the agenda is to acknowledge the certificate of posting.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Public comment. At this time, I would like to give the opportunity to anybody in the audience to address the board regarding this item. There being none, we'll move on to consent agenda, and that is to approve the minutes of the January 8th. I want to say that it's 2014, is that correct? It is 2013. Okay, I always get that one a little confused. It is for for the year before. To approve the minutes of the January 8th, 2013 meeting.
So moved, Madam Chair.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And now we'll go on to the regular agenda item, and that is to appoint officers for the year 2015.
Motion to appoint Barrios and Rivas as chair and vice chair. Forgot the last word. Concurrently or respectively.
Okay. There's a motion to appoint the current chair and the vice chair as the officers.
And Mary Lou as the treasurer of that organization.
Okay. And San Benito County Treasurer Mary Lou Andrat as the finance, I'm not clear on the title. Okay. So is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the board now will adjourn as the Board of Directors of the San Benito County Financing Corporation and reconvene as the Board of Supervisors. Council, do I need a motion to adjourn? Okay?
So move.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we move on to the consent agenda, part of our agenda, and I will ask our board if there are any items they would like to remove. I know we have item number 6, and I was going to pull that as well. Are any other items?
Just a real quick 2-minute, and I know I should have talked to Ray about this one, but just 2-minute on number 15.
Okay, so we're going to pull number 15.
Madam Chair, the public is requested to speak on item number 18.
Item number 18?
Public hearing, never mind.
Oh, okay. That's all right. So we are now going to pull, I will be pulling item number 3 as well, only a small spelling error. Item number 6 by our CAO and myself, and item number 15, Supervisor Del Cruz. Any others? Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the remaining consent agenda items.
So move.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll start with item number 3, and that is, there's just a slight error, Denise, on November the 4th, item number 13. If you could make that change, it should have read sealed bids instead of seated bids. So with that change, I will, if there's any comments from the public regarding this item? If not, I will bring it back and make a motion to approve the action minutes per staff recommendation with that one spelling change. That's my motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll go to item number 6. Let me bring that up. And the reason that I had pulled it, board, is because I wanted to thank the consulate for doing what is in the best interest of children. I think that we, as a board, that is our most vulnerable population, and to take this on and make sure that they are served, that we protect them, is commendable. So thank you. Les agradezco mucho que quieren poner a los niños al frente en estas situaciones, y les agradezco que como esta mesa está muy interesado en la seguridad de los niños, y queremos que soportar lo que ustedes están haciendo. So gracias, les agradecemos mucho. Okay.
Yeah, so I'd like to invite Maria Corona, our Deputy Director of Health and Human Services. We also have James Riding-Sword here as well. He's our Health and Human Services Director. But we're ecstatic to have the Mexican consulate here, so Maria.
Yes, good morning, board members, members of the community. I am very pleased and honored to have been able to work with the Mexican consulate. For many years, we've been trying to develop an MOU that will assist us to better understand both our roles in serving and providing services to members of our community that are of Mexican descent. I have today Consul Javier Aguilar Cuevas, if he could come up here, and I would like for him to be introduced, and Consul Carlos Ponce. And both of them are here today. If they could please come, and I would like for them to be introduced. Señor Carlos?
Yo soy Carlos.
Oh, usted Carlos, y Javier Aguilar Cuevas?
Javier tiene miedo.
Oh, okay.
He's saying that Javier is a little embarrassed. He's scared to come up. Javier, lo invitamos que venga. Yeah, we invite him to come up to the podium.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. Congratulations for your new designation.
Thank you.
Distinguished supervisors. Aware of the need to join efforts to treat with special care the right number of custody cases involving Mexican minors located in U.S. territory, through the development of a bilateral mechanism that facilitates the early identification of said minor and assure the exercise of the consular functions, reference of the Vienna Convention and bilateral convention also. The purpose of this memorandum of understanding is to establish the base of the coordination between the parts. Of course, San Benito Health and Human Service and the Consulate of San Jose to guarantee the exercise of the consular functions set for a bilateral convention and the Vienna Convention during custody processes involving the Mexican minor. On behalf of that minor and, of course, on behalf of the Mexican government, I want to say thank you very much for all your work and all your support in this area of California. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We are really pleased that we can sign this MOU. It's important working together. This is the third county where we signed up on MOU, and we're working with the different the four counties we work with for finishing this kind of memorandum. So we are really pleased that your willingness for signing this document. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you.
Well, that concludes our introductions, and I look forward to having your approval, blessing on this MOU. That's been, it's been overdue for a long time, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody from the public that would like to speak on this item? Okay, I'll bring it back to the board. I would like to go ahead and make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Consulate General of Mexico in San Jose and the San Benito County Health and Human Services Agency, authorize the Director of Health and Human Services to sign said memorandum of understanding.
Second, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We look forward to working with you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 15. Supervisor De La Cruz?
Yes, I guess Sheriff Thompson or Cap.
Madam Chair, congratulations.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Rivas, congratulations.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. These vehicles that we're replacing with two electrical vehicles with all-terrain vehicles, are you compromising the ability to go like into rough areas? Like, that's why kind of like, it's really a 2-minute question, and I should have done the research the night before and see what's the difference between, in terms of power and how long can it go. You're not compensating any other stuff when you have an emergency that you can jump on this vehicle, and this motorcycle, and go out and do the job.
Supervisor De La Cruz, we're increasing, in fact. We already have 8 all-terrain vehicles that we use currently. We're getting rid of 2 that we have that have been in service for probably over 10 years. So these 2 Zero motorcycles, they can go about 178 miles on a charged battery.
That's my question. That was my question. All right, thank you. That was my question.
You guys made it easy for me. Thank you.
I do. Madam Chair, I make a motion that we allow the
Well,
sheriff-
I'd like to see if the public has any comments, Supervisor De La Cruz?
About that?
Yeah, any comments from the public regarding this item? Okay, I'll bring it back. Go ahead.
Thank you. Allow the sheriff to enter into a reimbursement agreement with Monterey Bay Unified Air Pollution Control District for an amount not to exceed $26,680 for the purchase of 2 Zero electric motorcycles, and amend the schedule of FA to include 2 Zero electrical motorcycles and increase expenditures for fixed asset vehicles by $26,680 and increase revenue amount of $26,680, reorganizing the reimbursement from the district.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, at this time, we'll be moving to public hearing, and I will ask CAO Espinosa to introduce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we're at item number 17 this morning, our public hearing. We have our Planning Department present. We have our Interim Planning Director, Byron Turner, here. And we're going to be discussing the appeal of the Planning Commission's approval of use permit 1103-14 Verizon Wireless, and it's to open a public hearing and take any public comment on appeal of the Planning Commission's approval of the use permit by appellant Frank Guerrera Net Shelling Company. So we have Byron here. Byron?
Yes, at this time, we did want to request the continuance of this item because it was public noticed. However, we wanted to open up to the public. So it is staff's recommendation that the board open the public hearing and take any public comment, and then continue the matter without closing public hearing to February 3rd, 2014 at 9 a.m. I'm available for any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Byron. I will go ahead and open up the public hearing and take any public comment on this appeal. Anybody in the audience that would like to come up at this time? Okay. There being none, I'll bring it back to the board. Any discussion from this board before we continue it to February the 3rd, 2015 at 9 a.m.? Okay. Then we will go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I'll make a motion to move to continue the public hearing to February 3rd to 9 a.m.
Okay. There's a motion to continue and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will continue this public hearing February the 3rd, 2015 at 9 o'clock. Thank you. Our regular agenda now, item number 19, CAO Espinosa.
Madam Chair, we have item 18. We have another
I
public.
skipped that one. I apologize. Okay, we will go ahead and
Okay.
introduce that item 18.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we have item 18 on our agenda here. This is also a public hearing, and this is coming out of our Public Works office. We have our interim Public Works Director here, Joe Hordell, to hold a public hearing to consider the landowner's petition to vacate Vasquez Creek Road as provided by staff and adopt a resolution vacating Vasquez Creek Road.
Thank you. As noted in the staff report, this is a lightly improved roadway that is in the Panoche Valley. Staff has looked at the roadway, the properties that it serves, and because of a petition from the property owners that are served by this road, staff looked at the appropriate sections under the state highways codes, whether this made sense to remain in county jurisdiction or not. And staff has put forward a recommendation that the roadway be vacated, that we have looked at it, that the purposes of the roadway is to provide access to those adjoining properties, that the property owners have agreed that alternate means of access through a non-roadway is acceptable, that the county has not been putting investment in maintaining this road. And as we've noted in the staff report, we do qualify for state funding because of length of roadway, so there is an economic consequence to the dollars we receive. About $13,000 is our estimate. We have not been spending that money on this road. We've been spending on other roadways. But as I think the board is also aware of the projects being looked at in this area, and that is necessitating or requesting the street vacation actually has a much larger economic value to the county, and that as a part of the discussion earlier the board had about road maintenance, I think having the discussions really of how we maintain our roads is the appropriate place to have that discussion. $13,000 out of our road budget, it fixes some potholes, but it is not going to solve our resurfacing or slurry seal issues. So staff did want to make sure that the board was aware of that context, but we don't think it's a major consideration in the decision. We really think that from a land standpoint, road circulation standpoint, it's a dead-end road that serves several ranches, and we're not seeing the value back to the county in exchange for that. So we are supportive of the request for vacation.
Thank you, Joe. I will at this time open the public hearing. Anybody from the public would like to come up? You do have a...
Yes, Brad Sullivan.
Okay.
I was just going to speak on behalf of... Thank you, Madam Chair, and again, add my congratulations to you and Mr. Rivas for your position. The applicant, Eric Chernus, and I are here to speak if there are any questions. The process was summarized by your Public Works Director. We started about a year ago. when the actual construction was moving forward and getting into planning. We found that Little Pinoche Road on the map is in a different location than Little Pinoche Road is on the ground, that correction, and that this item, Ken Weatherly did research. This has not been included, although it's included on a list of roads. The county doesn't own the underlying fee. It has never been maintained. It is behind a locked gate, unlike a letter that came in, and that his predecessor, Steve Whitry, and I and Shirley Murphy agreed to this process rather than a lawsuit, which would have been to show that really nothing has ever been, and this was erroneously included on a state list. That in 1948, when the county had an ordinance adopting roads, this was not on it, and it was not on the original maps, but somewhere along the line it's been included. So we decided to come with the vacation process as quicker, easier, and not going to raise up a number of issues that, including cost, that even a friendly lawsuit would have. We're here to answer any questions and address any concerns.
I have a question, Brad. It wasn't included on the list at the state level, but that didn't mean that it didn't belong to the county, is what you're saying?
We didn't know. The county in 1948 adopted an ordinance assuming the care and custody of a number of roads, dirt and paved, throughout the county. It was not on that list. Okay. And doing a title search, it was never called out where a strip of land was dedicated to either a city, a county, or a state. And sometimes those are, there's actually little strips of land that belong to a railroad or townships that no longer exist, but the county took over and has maintained. However, it was, as the Public Works Director said, it was on a list of mileage that was included in an overall list by the county.
Okay, and we have been getting approximately $13,000 per year.
Correct.
So it has some value, and I noticed that there was like an is that correct, $87,000 value?
But that is for property that the county doesn't own.
Okay, so that doesn't belong, because I see that the property owners are getting money from PVS, and I'm thinking, well, why are we not getting any money for it?
You are getting money from it. You're getting money from the development agreement, and that was simply to upgrade a driveway so that they can use a driveway on the other side of the property to access theirs.
So we're going to benefit at another end.
Correct.
See, and I didn't remember, I know we have a development agreement, but I didn't know how we were going to make up these dollars that we are losing, and which I know are not big dollars, but we're in the mode of fixing roads, and any little bit.
Well, the construction should be going forward this spring, and at that time there'll be sales and use taxes, and plus the property tax makeup, the project that the city, or excuse me, the county and the developer are talking about to provide solar power for the jail. So there's a lot of there's other offsetting benefits for these types of things.
Thank you. Any other questions of Brad? Go ahead.
I have a really quick question, Brad. As the report states that the road is no longer used for public travel, and so certainly the discussion that was just had as far as the benefits, the economic, the upside to this decision on our agenda is clear. But how about access? It says here that, the road is no longer used by the public for travel, so is it not used at all?
As far as we know, it was never used. It is behind a locked gate. I mean, this was a dirt ranch road to the people out there. It was news to them that it was a public road as well. There is a county road, the Urardia Road, and then there's the Mercy Hot Springs, Little Pinoche, and then there's the New Idria, and some of those roads are paved and some aren't. But this when one of the county engineers went out to post it, he couldn't even find it. I mean, it looks like a fire break or simply or a pickup truck's driven across the field a couple times. And it may get dragged from time to time, but any access was simply by opening a gate or climbing a fence and walking across it. There was no public access to it.
Thank you.
Served as a ranch road.
Any other questions of Brad before he takes a seat?
Yes, Madam Chair, I have a couple. So the applicant, it will end up replacing this road with a new one that runs along a creek, is that correct? According to their EIR, or their supplemental EIR?
The supplemental EIR, I think those are different issues. I mean, there's,
It says the existing Vasquez Road will be replaced with a new road that runs outside the project fence line south to the Los Angeles Creek.
yeah, right.
So they're going to move this road and put it next to a creek, which is, I think, has critters issues?
No, it doesn't. If Eric can come up and give you the engineering, because I mean, it was his. I believe it's just there's an existing driveway that the person uses.
Yeah. Good morning. So the existing Vasquez Creek Road is primarily used by both the McCullough family and the Perry family, and that's how they access. They've got some distributed property up there that doesn't have direct county access. And so what we're doing with this road is we're abandoning the existing Vasquez Creek Road and just realigning it. It actually realigns very nicely with the existing transmission infrastructure that's there. And while it is adjacent to a creek, there are certain setback requirements that are evaluated through the CEQA process for that existing road, and that's what we're complying with there. So while it is parallel with the creek, it's outside of the sensitive habitat that's been being evaluated by the county.
The road is outside the sensitive habitat?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, you have not actually purchased the property yet. You still have your options.
That's correct.
So if the project does not go forward for whatever reason, then are we going to have these property owners coming back to us and wanting us to reinstate this as a county road so that they're not fighting over who can use it?
Most likely not, because they have certain property rights associated with owning property in California and having use of that road. The intention of this vacation is that we would replace the road with a new access, and that's kind of part of the agreement between us.
But if your project doesn't go forward, you're not going to build the new road.
That's correct, but we're not actually removing the existing road unless you move forward with construction of the project.
But if we vacate it as a public road, then are we going to end up with issues down the road of property owners, whether it's the same property owners or different property owners, fighting over who can use this and not use it and be coming back to us? I think this is a little premature until you own the land, personally.
But we'll just, for clarification, the current landowners are making the request for vacation of the Vasquez Creek Road.
I understand that, but they're making the request on your behalf.
I don't know what your deputy county counsel or public works director says. We've had this come up in other jurisdictions, and you basically require that all steps be taken by us within a year, or your action is set aside. You're void. So you would make the vacation. You would give us a period of time, a reasonable period of time, to complete the action to finish the vacation, and if we didn't, then the actual vacation is set aside. We had this unfortunately happens a lot in the foothills where like this, you go back in history, and what you have is, instead of one large Spanish land grant, you have probably 10,000 minors' patents for 40 feet by 100-foot strips of land. And they show up every so often in situations like this because they were right-of-ways for mine shafts or air tunnels or water ditches, and they need to be vacated. And sometimes when you're cleaning up the property for this to go ahead with a multi-billion or a billion-dollar project, they needed it off because it bisects the project, that your concerns, Supervisor, are good, and that if you wanted to add to the ordinance or the resolution that they have a certain time to complete the steps necessary for the vacation, it goes forward. Then if it doesn't go forward as they're anticipating this spring or summer, that then this action is void. And we'd have to come forward next year and ask for the same thing if, if the delays.
Does that
Thank you,
answer?
Ms.
Okay.
Thank you.
Supervisor Batella?
Yeah, I think Mr. Sullivan was touching on an area that was a question in my mind. How is the current Vasquez Creek Road detrimental to, the project, potential project? And you said currently the road alignment goes right through the middle of the design. And I guess the alternative is that you're going to build another road. My question is staff, maybe Matt could answer it, or Public Works, is, we've been very adamant not vacating roads, especially to BLM. And, does this send a message, we'll vacate a road here and, but not with BLM because of, public access. I'm concerned about the message that we're sending by going down
But I think the
this path,
facts
too.
are substantially different here. This road vacation is being taken in conjunction with a billion-dollar project that this board has approved to allow the project to go forward. Also, remember, when you vacate a road, the board has to make very, very specific findings that are, somewhat hard to make. So I believe in the BLM context, we were not able to make those findings, and there was no the BLM didn't involve construction of a billion-dollar solar energy plant. So there was nothing being constructed on the BLM property that the board was trying to clear the way for. Obviously, that's the case here, and obviously, unlike a lot of the BLM, you board can make the findings in this case that support a legal vacation of the road.
Okay. And reading what I've seen in our packet, the benefit is only if the project goes forward and this is be very lucrative to the county. But if it doesn't, we vacated a public road and really got nothing in return.
So I think that's why Mr. Sullivan's suggestion that this vacation have a sunset clause on it sufficient to allow them to begin construction, and in the event that they don't start construction for whatever reason, the vacation automatically is rejected and returns back to its status quo.
Right. Maybe it should be the other way around, shouldn't it? Could we frame it once the project gets going and they build the road, then we vacate it?
That's a timing issue with their construction. I'm not sure that they're going to get the financing or be able to start breaking ground if the bank or whoever their lender is sees that there's still a cloud on the title as regarding the road. I mean, I guess that's the concern, and they can probably articulate it better than I can. You can't start construction when you're constructing a public highway. So that has to come off first before construction is allowed to go forward. Did I say it correctly?
That's correct. And there's also security interest or issues during construction and afterwards if you have a public, I don't want to touch anything if that's me that's making that sound.
I'm not sure it's you.
I'm not sure what that is.
It could be me.
I've
A little
asked.
trick I do in depositions when they're being recorded. I drum my fingers.
So
So when you're-
Supervisor Patella, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
The
Okay.
recommendation, as Matt said, we could take that and make sure that we include it in the wording so that,
Yes.
so that it doesn't happen unless the project gets underway.
That would satisfy me.
No, that you're vacating it now, and then the final action is, if we don't do it within the year, then the vacation, it won't have taken place.
Okay.
We'll undo it.
And is a year long enough?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Supervisor Patella, you're okay with that? All right, Supervisor De La Cruz?
Well, I guess everyone said already what I was going to ask, because there is still that sunset clause, and there's still that afforded the opportunity for us to bring it, take it back. So I'm okay. I'm not worried about it. I think we've got to move forward. We got to listen for the public,
Okay.
and then vote on it. Madam
All right,
Chair.
you have another
Yes, I do.
public comment request. Yes. He was the first one to give it.
Good morning. My name is Carl Scow, San Benito County resident. I'd like to thank Chairwoman Barrios for her appointment and for the board for all their hard work. I know it's an underpaid position, so you guys work real hard. I'd like to comment on this Vasquez Creek Road. I personally have been here before speaking on roads, abandoning roads in the county, and I believe in abandoning any right-of-ways and roads in our county are short-sighted. That this resolution has apparently been worked on and negotiated and written by parties requesting this for many months. The original signatures of agreement with them and their paperwork provided to this county board were dated April 2014, so this has been going on for quite a time. It appears that by the statement of the filing of the public record, or I'm sorry, of the public notification, that this has only been notified for a public hearing as of January 9th. So in all of this time, the public hasn't been notified that they could come up and say anything about this. It is now given allotted time of 10 minutes for this Board of Supervisors to review the public input and review the current income numbers, and not to be given a true value of the land in question. In fact, from Brad's comments, they're not even sure who owns the land underneath, which, if my math serves me correctly, on a 30-foot right-of-way through that in 3.6 miles, that would be over 13 acres of land that we're talking about that is here. And the people negotiating on this, the company negotiating on this, is willing to pay up to $20,000 to other landholders to make their easements coming through other lands, but is not willing to propose any payment to our county for this road. And so I question why they would turn around and pay other people to abandon their right just to tell our county that it's not worth anything and it has no use at all. As stated by your county staff, this does produce income, $13,000 a year currently. In 2 years, that would have paid for those motorcycles that the Sheriff's Department was looking for, right off the bat, without doing anything on our behalf. It would have just paid for them. In addition, they say that the assessed value, which is not an appraised value or not a true arm's length value, but the assessed value is $87,500. It would be good for our county to actually know who owns the property and to find what that true value is. It is stated that the property has no use to the county, but as with all roadways, it is something that you will never get back. Today, as a county, we have no direct usage, but in generations to come, one example would be part of one of those ranches giving a trust of a park and now not having an access in a back way, only through their main access. So descendants in years to come may find that they would choose to grant a part of that ground to our county. We are a growing county, and we have generations to go. So I would question why we would just give up our right to abandon, or give up our right and abandon a road. At least one of the property owners feels that it has value, as they are willing to pay the owners, the adjoining owners, to abandon that claim, but again, they have no mention to payment to the county. I feel what is at issue here should either be declined at this time or held over for future discussions. First off, we should find out what a true value or offer on the property would be from the requesting party to the county for this ground. Also, if there may be other adjoining property owners or other interested parties in this property, and until the property has been placed out on the market for competing offers. It's a hard place for us to just turn around and abandon a road and ever expect to get it back.
Could you wrap up, please?
Sure.
I think the time is up.
I'm sorry. Brad mentioned that if we didn't do this, that we would have a friendly lawsuit. I've never seen a friendly lawsuit, and I don't even like the connotation that we're being threatened with one at this time. I think we need to put this on postponement for this time and look at what the true value is. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Any other cards? Speaker cards? Marty?
Marty Richard from Hollister. A belated Happy New Year to everybody. 3 weeks late, I'm sorry. But you weren't in session, so I didn't get to say it. There are 4,000,001, I counted them, roadblocks to doing anything in the state of California. Why don't you just approve this and bring this particular project down to 4 million roadblocks, and even 4 million, rather than having it 4,000,001. This is all about whether or not we're going to make it easy for them to build this solar project, or whether they're going to make it hard. I'm sorry the chaperones left. They did a lot of talking during Measure J about solar energy, but every time it comes up, all the folks who say they supported solar energy immediately bail out. I don't know why. I don't think Andy meant that intentionally, but he has no interest in supporting this project. He believes that just talking about solar energy makes solar energy happen. Nobody wants to do anything about it. So we're stuck at the federal government. I think you all know that, because they're doing a NEPA evaluation. And it'll be stalled up there forever and a day. And people who are NIMBY on this and opposed it, and I want to tell you my credentials are good. I originally opposed it until they proved to me that we're going to do the mitigation. I hope you remember that. That would be a good mitigation and would handle the problems that the mitigation requires. And when they were able to fund that and when they were able to prove that, I changed my position on this project. So I am being a true environmentalist, because I'm looking at the environment we have to live in. Now, you can't get something for nothing. 2/3 of the energy, or more than 2/3 of the energy used in this county, are used for non-residential. And throughout the state of California, non-residential. You talk about jobs, there will be no jobs if there is no energy. Okay, we had our fight about oil, it went whichever way it went. Now, are we going to now start fighting about whether or not we can have a solar plant? Because nobody wants it in their backyard? Well, I tell you what, I wish the heck PG&E would just throw the switch and shut everybody's lights off for a week, and don't let them run any generators, and let's see how valuable you think the electricity you have is. The electricity here runs the sewer plants that clean your water. It runs the water pumps that lets those agricultural people grow stuff. In fact, it's the biggest electrical user in rural areas is pumping water, and the biggest in urban areas is cleaning water. How are you going to do that if you don't have any energy? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marty. Any other comments from the public? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the board.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Shirley, if we approve this resolution as is, is there language in the resolution that dictates that if a project's not done in 1 year, that the board supervisors can come back and discuss the vacation subject?
Not as drafted, but we've been scribbling notes into the margins that Joe was going to read into the record as a suggested language that we could continue this to later in the meeting. I can run upstairs and adjust the resolution and bring it back for further consideration.
Yeah, we can do that.
Is that the pleasure of the board then to go ahead and table this for now and bring it back maybe after closed session?
We did have a couple more points, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
So actually, I would like to go through and actually put out the wording that we're thinking about. That way, if the board's okay with that, Shirley can take care of that. And if there's any changes, we can kind of work through it once.
Okay, Supervisor Patella?
Before we go that far, I just want, are you confident that the other owners in that road support this? because we've done things that we thought we had public support, and then all of a sudden, we kind of stepped on it pretty bad. And so I didn't see anything in our agenda item that proved that everybody has signed off on this to begin with.
Right. So a couple of things related to that. One is that Armand went actually out on the road, drove the length of it, posted at every one of the gates that are in there, that as it went into the individual ranches, what our action was. We also mailed to, using the assessor's information of the ownership of each one of those properties, this action and the notice for today, so that we would be able to answer questions that they had about the process. We actually did have one party that called in. I don't remember which one it was, but we did talk with them, explain the actions that were being taken. So Armand was working through with all of them to make sure they understood the actions. And then again, we have the document that's submitted that started this, that has been going on for a while. It has not been working through the county staff as long as the dates that were signed for, I think, was March and April. But those were, again, the signatures of the relevant interest of each one of the properties. I have not personally gone through and talked to each one of them, but we have gone through and worked through both the limitations or the requirements of state law of notification, have hit all those, and we've gone through and talked to kind of where we know the interested parties. That's one of the things that Armand's really good at, is he's got the history of the community and knows who to talk to and check in what's going on. And so we've really tried to make sure that there's no surprises related to this.
Right.
And then kind of related to it, as was talked about, the sunset provision, I think, is an operative relevant piece to put into the agreement. And that would be one more layer of insurance if there's stuff that's going on that for something that we goofed up on, I think it's going to have other consequences besides just the road vacation, and it would allow us to roll that backwards. But I think I have great confidence in the work that staff has done, that the research we did, and then actually all the notification that we've done to give all those parties every opportunity to go through and say, this isn't real. I didn't sign this or whatever.
Right. Okay, and then the last question I have is the alternative road, the new road that would be constructed to provide access, I guess, into those areas. Is that going to be a public road or a private road? And if it's going to be a private road, is there some sort of condition to have it, the easement on some sort of deeds?
So I will ask the applicant's representative to answer that question, because I don't want to kind of misrepresent what they're building. I will say, however, that staff, in reviewing this proposal for vacation, did not take that into account as a rationale for why to do the vacation. Because if that was part of our foundation, then we clearly would have linked those two together. We looked at this assuming that wasn't happening. It's just going down all the requirements under state law, which, as Matt noted, are very strident about when we're allowed to do this. It's very difficult to vacate roads, but we went through every one of those and looked at it and says we could make the findings kind of straight up in order to go and bring this forward to the board. So.
Yeah, because I'm a little concerned that if we leave one property landlocked without any, dedicated easement in place, it's, we know what we're all agreeing to today, but 25 years from now, what happened?
Right. Yeah, so I'll let the applicants.
And actually, just before Brad speaks, if you look at Exhibit B to the resolution, it has the petition, which is signed by the, property owners of all of the parcels that are currently served. And behind that, there is an agreement between Panoche Valley Solar and the owners of the potentially landlocked parcels. And in the body of that agreement, it references providing easements. So they're not proposing to dedicate an alternate public road to serve those parcels, but they're
purporting to provide an easement, at least according to the paperwork we have.
Any other?
Yeah, thank you, Shirley. That was, and those will not be built to county standards and then dedicated to the county. That was not the wish of anybody, including the county staff, building a road that's nowhere. You know, why would you build a driveway that's better than the road serving it? You know, it's off of the Little Pinoche or the Mercy Hot Springs. I don't know if it's changed names at that point. But yes, that will be on title so that it's not creating a road. And then as part of the mitigation, there will be public access to certain portions, but that's being worked out by Eric now with the resource agencies.
Okay, so it is a beyond title and
Yes.
granted easement for all the properties that it's being
Correct.
affected. All right.
Okay. Supervisor Munzer, you had another question?
Well, I just have a comment. I just found out about this on Thursday. I was, our interim public work director and I were in the area. We had driven down to, actually, all the way to New Hydra, and he mentioned that this was coming before us. I ended up being under the weather after that trip. Thank you. I'm not blaming you, but but I tried to reach out to some of the property owners. Only had time to touch base with one of them. I really, with the permission of the rest of my board members, I'd like to continue this public hearing till a date certain of February 3rd. I think there's too many unanswered questions. The big one of who owns the property, and I just like to hear more about what staff tried to do to attain ownership of the property, who actually owns it. I'd like to have time to reach out to some more of the property owners down there, touch base with them, and I'm not quite sure, you know, another 2 weeks what that's gonna. I don't think that's gonna set anybody's time frame back, but I would feel more comfortable if we can continue this to February 3rd.
And bring the language back that has
And
been
bring the
proposed.
language back at that time.
Let me ask Brad. Brad, if you could come up to the mic, and 2 weeks from now, we will be having our next board meeting. Is this going to affect, because we know the size of this project and what you have been going through to get to where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally don't want to set it back anymore, but you tell us.
The better person to ask would be Eric. I mean, he's looking over there, looking sheepish, probably doesn't want to be impolite and say no, but no, they are aiming for April or May of this year for construction, and they're trying to get the financing in order, and this is a cloud. I can address some of the concerns Mr. Scow said. Last year it was this time that we brought this information to. At that time, it was Mr. Wittry, and we sat down. We had Ken Weatherly, who's kind of the expert in this county of these old road, and we were trying to find the title as far as we can tell. I mean, and we have Paul Ravella right now going back and getting all of the old mineral claims and oil exploration claims that might be out there taken off, is owned by the landowners who will be taken out in the when the options are exercised, they will the land is being purchased. The person who is not having his land purchased for either the solar farms or the mitigation area is the person who's being paid. Take that for what it is. I mean, or for what you think. Whether it is hey, I want some of this, or whether it is a matter of, him needing some upgrade on his road, it's not for us to decide. I think time is of the essence, and I think Jerry's or Supervisor Munzer's concerns are very real. But the people who signed the agreement last year, all of the landowners who were involved in April did so because they want the project to go forward. They want their own ranches, viability kind of depends upon the capital they will be getting when the construction moves forward and their options are exercised. And then it's taken this long for Eric and the engineers to negotiate with the Perry family to define the access to it.
And I figured as much, Brett, that time is of the essence because I know what the setbacks that have been involved.
Right. We've
So,
been all the way to the Supreme Court, winning at every step of the way. We have a supplemental EIR that's coming forward, should be here any day, in order to put a wire on the PG&E, big towers. So it's, there's a lot of hurdles, and they're really trying to get everything done. I mean, it's moving party. In addition to the environmental and the agencies, there's the financing, there's the other utility companies now who are partnering with Duke, instead of Duke taking the lead, that each of these, the decisions that you're making today have to go through all of those processes.
and I would be okay to come back with this, with the language, unless you have it now, Joe and Shirley. But if you don't, we can push it to after the closed session.
So I do have the language I was going to walk through.
Okay.
Okay with the board?
If you want to go ahead and say it now,
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think,
okay.
being that, Supervisor Munzer is the district supervisor, and this is kind of a relative, new issue for him, and I think his rationale of having the opportunity of a little bit more time to look into it, I don't think this should be a deal breaker for 2 more weeks to, maybe establish a little bit more comfort going forward. I would support Supervisor Munzer's request.
Madam Chair.
yes.
And I agree with that as well. I think this is Supervisor Munzer's district, and I would defer to him, because this is, when this came on our agenda, this is the first time I had heard of it as well. So I would agree with Supervisor Patel. I'd rather just have it come back on February 3rd.
Okay, Supervisor.
Madam Chair, I will support that our planning director gives our language today, and let's move on it. I think we've been waiting for this for too long. It's been gone through every opportunity to stop this project, and I think enough is enough. We just got to move forward.
Yeah, and with all due respect for Supervisor Munzer, yes, this is your district, but this is a community county project that has been in the planning for too long and with a lot of setbacks, so I will support Supervisor De La Cruz, but it appears that we have a 3-2 to wait until February the 3rd. So unless that changes.
I would move that we continue this public hearing until February 3rd.
And then, thank you. I just want to say that we will be able to get that language too.
At that time.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a motion and there's a second? Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. Okay, so it'll come back on February the 3rd. Okay, we'll move to item number 19 in our regular agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this item was discussed in December. We had our sheriff here. He actually presented this concern that he had with regards to staffing in his organization on, I believe it was December the 2nd. Your board asked to bring it back to you in December or January. So today we're here. We're going to go ahead and have our sheriff here, Thompson, to present to you staffing within his organization. So, Sheriff.
Thank you, Mr. Espinoza. And good morning, Madam Chair. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to working together with this group the next 4 years as we've worked together in the past 4. Mr. Espinoza did indicate that I was here on December 2nd during department head announcements and provided some information to you in a written form. And it was your direction to have me return with an agendized item. For the benefit of those who may not have been here on December 2nd, I'll be reading a couple of paragraphs from that presentation. Over the past 6 years, our agency has shrunk from 96 full-time employees to only 47, and 3 of those are vacant. This number of 47 includes all uniformed and non-uniformed jail, courts, patrol, and civilian staff members. Today, we are specifically addressing the issue of deputy sheriff. In budget year 2009, we staffed 24 deputy sheriffs. Today, we staff 12. Those 12 are divided as follows: 2 bailiffs, which are funded by the courts, 2 detectives, one of which is funded by the California Methamphetamine Project, 1 school resource deputy, funded 50% by the school district, 2 deputies in training. This leaves only 5 deputy sheriffs on patrol. Add 3 patrol sergeants to that mix, and we have a grand total of 8 full-time people covering 168 hours of patrol each week. That math translates to 2 people on duty to patrol and cover a territory of 1,400 square miles. We are unable to perform contemporary police work, such as separating all the members of a household when responding to a report of domestic violence, setting a perimeter around a building that is being burglarized, staffing a reasonable response to an active shooter scenario such as a school shooting, or simply handling more than 1 call for service at a time. If the 2 deputies are at 1 call, there is no one free to respond to another. Those were segments from a longer letter that was read to you on December 2nd. I acknowledge that the board in this county is not in the financial position to fund 12 new positions today. But we ask your board to instead add to the ranks incrementally as funding permits, with the long-term goal of adding to staff annually until a reasonable level is reached. I recommend the realistic approach of approving the hire of 2 deputy sheriffs now and beginning the recruitment and hiring process this fiscal year for 2 additional deputies, with a commitment of your funding at the next fiscal interval, which will be July of 15. 4 new deputy sheriffs is a good start, but is far short of ideal. Your board can anticipate requests for 2 additional deputies annually unless the county should find itself in the financial position to fund those positions more frequently. Today I'm asking for your vote on the following items. 1, to augment the sheriff's schedule of authorized positions, adding 4 full-time equivalent deputy sheriffs. 2, increase our fiscal year 2014-15 expenditures in the amount of $72,335 for the 2 deputy sheriffs. And 3, commit to funding 2 additional deputy sheriffs in fiscal year 15-16, creating an annual estimated cost of about $490,000 for a total of 4 deputy sheriffs. That's what I'm here to get your vote on today.
Any questions from the sheriff before I open it to the public? Okay. Anybody from the public that would like to speak on this item?
Good morning. I'm Paul Wattis from Piscinas. I just stumbled across this thing and was reminded that the sheriff is asking for some more help. Most of you know me. Most of you know where I live. South County from Piscinas is an enormous area, and we're a long ways from help. Where I live, if we call for help, if the guy's saddled up and ready to go, it's a half hour to get there. We don't have anybody that lives out there, normally patrols. We used to have a South County deputy, 1 guy, and this is an enormous area for 1 guy to cover, and he's got a hell of a long ways to wait for help to come to get him if he gets in a problem. South County pays a lot of property taxes. We don't ask for a lot of services. All we want is fire, police, and the roads. The roads are supposedly paid for by gas tax. That means fire and police. It's up to you guys to provide to us. We're not getting our money's worth down there. To cover that thing properly, we need 2 deputies, 24 hours a day, one on one side, one on the other. Now, that would be ideal. You won't get that because that would take 6 or 7 guys. But we should have 2 guys assigned to South County on a roving basis, so we show the colors, so people are there to protect us. We had to hold a guy for 2 hours last year, waiting for somebody to come. 2 deputies were on duty. They were busy with something else, and they couldn't come. Meanwhile, the guy's buddy was cruising up and down the road with a rifle, and finally Fish and Game responded and took the guy away. This is unacceptable. We look at you guys to provide us some services. We don't need a lot of stuff from the county. All we want is our protection from fire and police protection, and that's it. Please give the sheriff what he needs. I'm asking you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Waters.
Marty Richmond again from Hollister. I live in the city of Hollister, so we have a bigger police department, and we have more frequent patrols, and we have more coverage. We have a lot more people. But you've got a lot of miles, and I've spoken on this before because, one, you cannot physically isolate public safety. You can't have great public safety here and lousy public safety around it and expect they won't affect each other. It doesn't work like that. The people who get in trouble move to areas where the police are not. So they migrate one way or the other. The sheriff's department here is severely understaffed by any measure you want to do it. And you know, I'm a tough guy when it comes to how much it costs to run an operation, but I'm also a realist. I look at this staff and I go, this is pro forma. You only have somebody there so you can say, I have somebody on patrol. They're not effective. They can't be. They cannot patrol that kind of size with that many people. You've got to give them some help. The ideal, in my opinion, the ideal answer would be to actually upgrade those positions in South County and make them triple positions. Have someone who's triple qualified to be an initial fire evaluator, fully qualified deputy sheriff, and an EMT person who can save your life in the first half an hour and get you to a helipad so somebody can drag you out of there. Excuse my language. That's Army talk. Drag you out of there if you're wounded or hurt. That would be the ideal situation because you can't get a fire response, and one person cannot fight a forest fire. That's not the issue. But if you have a trained person who can evaluate the fire, they can call for the correct amount of support and explain exactly what the issues are and how best to contain the fire. So while the fire department is responding, you have a professional on the ground making an evaluation. That's an enormous help. It's the same thing with EMT. It's not just come get somebody, they're bleeding or they're hurt or they're not breathing, but you have a professional there who can say, this appears to be a heart attack, it appears to be a stroke, or it appears to be something else. And that way they're prepared when they show up. I think you ought to give the sheriff some support right now, and you ought to look to the future of making a triple qualified, a few people who can be stationed in South County where they belong and cover that area, because those people need the help. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marty. Anybody else from the public that would like to comment on this item? Yeah, I'll bring it back to, CEO.
May I make a comment, Madam Chair?
Absolutely.
So we have given us some consideration per board's direction concerning staffing, but looking at the finances from the administrative side, we do know that the sheriff does need staff. We're definitely doing our best to provide that. There were some considerations and some thoughts that we have, though. One is is the actual cost, new vehicles. We also have to consider the court security. The court security still has not been approved by the state yet, and that is about a $400,000 ticket item. We also have to consider the jail expansion project with staffing that was approved by this board at about $700,000. So there's definitely some considerations from the budget side of things. My recommendation would be to approve up to a maximum of 2 deputies at this point, and go through the recruiting process. I know it takes some time for that, but I would highly discourage the board from any additional staff until we really have a better understanding of the budget. That really should be going through the budget process. And that's what I wanted to share with the board at this point.
And our budget process actually is starting very soon. I believe we have our first meeting in March.
That's correct. And we're working on it internally right now. We have Melinda and myself and other staff members actually creating their budgets, and they'll be turning those in internally. So we're doing work right now as we speak.
So we'll be looking at those numbers to see what position we are in to make additional changes.
That's correct. And we also have to consider all staffing too within the accounting, planning, public works, and other staffing that we really do need desperately as well. But I know that this is a priority, so we're doing everything we can.
Okay, thank you for your recommendation. I'll bring it back to the board for further discussion.
Madam Chair, I have no problem. I will support you with 2 deputies today. I will. In terms of the other 2 positions you're asking for, a total of 4, because we're going to start the budget process in March, well, I will take that very highly in consideration, but I want to know from the staff, from a global perspective, budget-wise, see if we can fund an additional 2. But for right now, I will support the 2 because I do believe that you're short out there, and there's some members of the deputies out here in the audience, and I know that they need help. I have no problem, Madam Chair, unless the rest of the board members are willing to go full-blown in support 4. For starters right now, unless the board changes my mind to go to 4, I'm going to start with 2 right now.
With 2, okay. Any other comments?
Yes.
Supervisor Patella?
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's prudent on our part to support 2 deputies as quickly as we could put them out on the street. I want to thank the sheriff for coming forward with a plan that I think is reasonable, and it's a goal that I hope that the board and our administrative staff could move towards short-term and long-term as we evaluate our future budget. And, I understand, speaking with the sheriff, that, it's time-consuming to recruit and train deputies, and perhaps, we shouldn't impede that effort, and hopefully in our evaluation of the next year's budget, maybe we could add another position. Might not be 2, might be 1, maybe none. I don't know. But I think we should commit to 2, allow the sheriff to maybe have some sort of recruitment process to have some flexibility if we're able to find, some sort of support for him.
Supervisor Munzer, any comments? Supervisor Rivas?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. I do agree with all that's been said. I think, if the sheriff is requesting an allocation of the 2 positions now, that I think that that's the direction we should move in. And I do agree with my colleague that, maybe we can start a recruitment process, leave them unfilled, until we have a clearer a picture of our budget. Because, in the end, I think certainly our fiscal situation and our position is, it's unknown to this board as far as, where we're headed in the immediate future. But once we get these, our projections for next year, we'll have a better picture. But I personally think that it's going to require us in June or May to make some of these concessions, and that's something that I'm ready to do. And certainly we have to look at our budget and see where we can allocate our, some general fund resources for the sheriff's office, because there's no question that he does need an increase. I think immediately 2 would be great, but ultimately we want to increase that 5, 6. But it's going to take a very hard a discussion by this board. And that's something I'm willing to do, and I'm sure the rest of us are. It'll be extremely painful, but that's what it's going to take. I don't want to, be about the bush, but that's something that we're going to have to talk about. So
And thank
it's
you.
not going to be easy.
It's not going to be easy, but I think you have the commitment of this board that we will look at every angle to afford that opportunity. But you're right, we do have the responsibility of the entire county budget, and but I will support the 2 with giving the sheriff the leverage to recruit, but we cannot commit and move forward immediately on that. Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was not going to say anything because I have always supported finding as much money as we can for the sheriff. It's been difficult. What I do want to say is I am committed to helping the sheriff fulfill his campaign promise the first time he ran of utilizing part-time deputy sheriffs to fulfill some of these roles. I stand with you on that. I've always said I have stood with you on that, and I think that is something that we definitely are going to have to utilize, just as we're utilizing the reserve components for the fire department. We have a better fire department, utilizing the reserves, consolidating with the 2 cities and the county. I also fully support the consolidation underneath the sheriff of law enforcement for the county and the 2 cities. And so I too will support the funding of 2 positions at this time, but also utilizing the ability to figure out how to basically use reserves on patrol in the future. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
Madam
Any other
Chair.
comments? Okay, we can put our thoughts in the form of a motion. I believe we got.
Madam Chair, may I add one more thing?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I appreciate the direction this is headed, and certainly 2 is going to give us some help immediately. It's far short of the 12 that we need. But I also understand that the board is considering giving me the green light to start the recruitment process in hopes of funding 2 more for July. And that's understood, and that's also very valuable. But I wanted the board to know that there's a police academy starting in mid-June. It's about a 6-month-long academy. And so I'm going to come back in April or May and ask for the funding of these other 2, because I can't wait for June. I'm going to come and ask a month or so early, and I'm going to have those people ready to go in the event that you say yes, and I'm hoping that you do.
Well, thank you for those comments, and because we are going to start our budget process in March, I'm hopeful that we may have some more concrete numbers at the time that you make your request.
Thank you.
Yeah, and in May, we are actually having a special meeting dealing with the budget. So we have March, April, and May. We have 3 days set aside, 1 day in each month. And in May, we should have a lot better outlook, vision of where we're at from a county's perspective at that point.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for your presentation, and I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion unless there's further questions. My motion is one to augment the sheriff's schedule of authorized position, adding 2 FTE deputy sheriffs, and to increase 14-15 expenditures in the amount of $72,335 for the 2 deputy sheriffs, and that's it. Just also, and allow the sheriff to continue in the recruitment process for the. His earlier comments were on the
additional.
Yes, additional 2.
Without the commitment.
Without the commitment, so that'll be number 3. What gives
right.
you the opportunity to come back in April, May.
I love being here. Looking forward to it.
All right, there's a motion on the table.
Second.
There's a second? Okay, second from Supervisor Botello. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? This motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Unless you are ready to take a break, we can continue. We only have 2 more items. Okay. Item number 20. RCAO?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this particular item is coming out of our administration office, and we have Sarah Fontanos here available to actually provide you a annual impact fee report of fiscal year 2013 and 2014. Sarah?
Good morning, everyone. So the report should be provided in the packet that was provided to you. It's basically, this was actually presented at our last meeting in in December, as per government code section, for review of the public for at least a minimum of, I believe, 14 or 15 days. So today, and I just want to also remind before I ask you for your review and approval of the document, that it's not a budgetary document. It is just provides the financial expenses, interest, and revenue for the year for each impact fee category. So with that, if there aren't any corrections that you've seen or questions, comments, then I'm hoping for your review and approval today of the document.
I think the only question that I had, Sarah, was the amount that was put in there for the demolition of the old hospital. And I may have brought this up before, but I forgot what your answer was on that. And I know this is just, a report.
Right.
But where did that come from?
This I had found as another, it's a project that's still sitting, and I'd have to pull this specific journal entry. I believe it was for documentation of looking at the demolition. But it was a previous project that's still sitting there with some funding. I believe it was about $25,000 for the full project. And that was the only expense for 13-14, looking at the documentation of what it would look like. Obviously, it hasn't been done.
Okay, so if it's on the list, it really does not commit us to it because this is not a budgeting document.
Right.
So, okay, so it's okay if it's there and we're not really.
Right. It's just a look at the expenses over the last year and the revenue that has come in for that. The specific budget stuff would be held for the CIP for the coming year.
Very
So,
good.
Yeah.
Any comments? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sarah, I'm looking at the future projects for parks and recreation impact fees, and I see there's only 4 items, and I understand why there's a to-be-determined costs. I understand on three of the 4, and the 4th one makes sense because we are actually put dollars into it.
Right.
Any other projects that will go in here? Because I was actually reviewing the Master Park and Recreation Big Book that we approved a couple years back, and there's a lot of parks in there. Is this just for 15, 16, and then next year we'll start adding future projects into it?
So yes, so this reflects 13-14 items. Any new projects from 14-15 would not be here. That would be for my next
16,
annual
17
report.
would not be.
Correct,
Okay,
right. And so, which is why I left it to be determined, because again, not a budget document. Again, leaving that for the budget cycle and CIPs.
Okay, so then,
And
the
the
next
strategic.
study, when we do another study, we will include all those.
All
other
of them
projects.
revised, correct.
Any
Thank you,
other
Madam
question-
Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're very welcome. Any other questions of Sarah before I open it up to the public?
I just have one, and I could be wrong. Did we borrow some funds from the traffic impact fees and used it for something else for a short term?
Yes.
Stonegate Well.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's
Well.
right. Now, that's not reflected in this number,
Correct.
and it's not truly available. And shouldn't these numbers reflect truly available revenue for projects? But if we have it lent out for Stonegate, should we have that as a separate column that counts receivables or something?
Right, so loans, in that case, because it was a loan, and I did note it on my document here that that loan did happen, so that when I do the annual report for 14-15, it is required that that is placed there and that there is also a expected payback date. Again, because this is the 13-14 year, it didn't happen in 13-14, I wouldn't report it again, because it's not a budget document, but it doesn't mean that the accounting of that is not being reviewed and discussed. It will just reflect in the next year's report.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll open it up to the public. Anyone have any questions or comments on this item? Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for a decision.
I'll move to accept the report.
Okay,
Second?
motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Our last regular agenda item, item number 21, our CAO will introduce.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this is coming out of our Public Works Department. We have Joe Hordell here to discuss this item with you. It's a consideration, the draft agreement with the City of Hollister and San Benito High School District, basically directing staff to complete the temporary closure agreement negotiations with other agencies, the sequel and public engagement process, and return with a formal approval to consider their temporary closure, and delegate the CAO approval authority to facilitate a tentative offer of dedication with the school district to the county. So this particular item is dealing with Nashville and the high school. So Joe?
Thank you. So as Ray noted, the agreement before the board today is to...
Excuse me, we have a disclosure at this time?
Yeah, I just wanted to state on the record that I am an employee at San Benito High School, but I don't, I get a paycheck from them. I work there full-time, but I don't have any direct association with the high schools.
With the decision-making?
With the decision-making of this, beyond my capacity here at the county. So.
And you don't care, you don't need to recuse yourself, you don't feel? And counsel, that's enough of an explanation for?
I'm not possibly going to answer that question.
Okay.
Benefit or gain anything.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Before us today is an agreement that is trying to facilitate really three different parties, the county, the high school, and the city of Hollister, to move forward several important projects. One is the Regional Park project that was just mentioned as a part of the CIP. The second is to improve the safety for the students that currently use the high school and cross Nash Road on a daily basis. That in the past, we've worked with the high school to provide pedestrian safety amenities. They have crossing guards, enhanced flashers that operate on the street, but it's been a long-term project for nearly a decade, I'm told, to go and actually find a better way of addressing the safety of the students. And so staff and several of the elected officials from each of those agencies met back about 4 or 5 months ago now, and tried to figure out how to break through the impasse that's always stopped this from moving forward. And so we put forward some ideas that essentially is what I would call a graduated escrow type transaction that would allow each of the parties to put something into the table that would benefit other parties that would gradually result in land coming to the county for building the regional park that the high school district has, that would allow the city and the county to consider a closure, whether on a temporary basis, a recurring temporary basis, or a permanent basis of Nash Road, that would essentially close the road during school hours on school days and treat it as an extension of the campus, as well as allowing a roadway to get built through the school lands that would serve the regional park facility. And the challenge is every one of those had a contingent point that nothing could move forward until something happened. So what this agreement is trying to do is to put forward the good faith efforts of all the agencies. It's to set forward some steps that the county would take in working on the engineering for the roadway, which would provide a relief valve for Nash through the high school property. It would set up a mechanism for the high school to provide land to the county, and it may be in an offer of dedication initially that then becomes a permanent dedication, as well as how the city and the county would jointly work on operating the closure of Nash during that temporary kind of trial. And working with the city, we have agreed as the county to take the lead on the encroachment permit process, the design review process of all the improvements that would go into Nash Road. The goal is to create a pedestrian essentially sidewalk that moves through Nash Road that cars would then move into, so that clearly, even when the road is not closed during non-school hours, that drivers would recognize that they're moving into somewhere that is not a normal roadway. You still could move through, but it may be raised up so that, you know, you're actually is like an extended speed hump, that the pavement would be more sidewalk looking, landscaping, lighting that would be more pedestrian oriented. So the goal really is to make this be a pedestrian space for the students. So today's action is asking for concurrence of the board. Are you comfortable with us continuing to move forward that and kind of continuing to move ultimately to consideration of a full closure of Nash Road? As Ray noted in our recommendations, is we are working on the master EIR for the regional park. We have looked at the traffic impacts of a full closure. We're not asking for a full closure today. We're asking for the ability to consider a temporary closure during the school hours. And that would include an operational plan where the city and the school district would work with the neighborhood, and that assuming that that was implemented and for several years, we would actually be into a yearly cycle of working with the community to make sure that we're not creating unintended consequences in the neighborhood. We want to make sure that we're really operating in a safe manner for the school as well as the surrounding community and not creating problems greater than what we're solving. So we've really tried to anticipate how all the moving pieces are working, recognizing some of it we're still working on, so that's why there's not exhibits in this today. We wanted to get the framework there. We've got concepts sketched out, but we haven't engineered them all out, so before we go into that next step of cost, we want to make sure that works. And then the last point I'll note is that the high school has engaged an architectural firm to work on the design of the improvements of how this would start to look. And so the city and the county have not seen any of the work coming back from that architectural and engineering firm. That'll be really one of the next steps, is to start doing that plan review. When we met back about 4 or 5 months ago, our goal was to be done in time for the school year this fall. I think that's pretty much a stretch goal at this point, but I'm still trying to get the other two parties to move at that kind of schedule. But, you know, it is one that we want to lean into it, that having all the parties seeing that there is, in fact, light at the end of the tunnel, I don't want to lose that opportunity and actually be able to bring it forward.
Yeah, and I must say that we had a lot of meetings, a lot of talking, a lot of different folks. When we left, Supervisor Botello and I, at the last meeting where it was decided that this is the way we wanted to move forward, it was very encouraging that finally, after all this time, people are agreeing on how we were moving forward. So we've made great strides, and I will support it. So we'll see. Anybody, any other comments from the board before I call for public comment?
Yeah, I want to agree with everything you said, Chairman Barrios, and it is a complicated, it's like herding cats.
It was.
And, you know, I certainly, I think the utmost importance on everybody's mind was the safety of the people at the school. And this addresses that. I had reservations of the road being permanently closed. I think this is a good direction. Go in, see what the impacts are on the neighborhoods and the school. And I'm really enthused about our direction at this point. Thank you.
Any other comments? Supervisor Bates?
Yeah, I as well. You know, as I stated, I'm an employee there, so it's, you know, always been an issue. It's a significant issue. It's a safety issue. And so I'm pleased that the direction, I want to thank my colleagues, I want to thank the staff that's been working on this, and this is a long, drawn-out issue. And another thing, I'm happy to be a part of this board when we're making a decision that at least half of it is in my district, because all the issues we deal with, none of them are in my district. So I am very pleased, and I'm encouraged by this action.
Good, good. Supervisor Munzer?
I'd like to help change that when we redraw the district lines in a few years. We'll deal with that, Supervisor.
No. Leave it alone.
Supervisor De La Cruz,
No,
any
I'm good.
comments?
Let's move.
Okay, I'll take comments from the public. Anybody in the public that would like to address?
Yes, I'm Valerie Egland.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you, dear heart. Jim mentioned as we began to exit, that this issue is here, and from the paperwork, it was not that evident to me, but I am familiar with the Parkway, all the early developmental sketches, the thoughts that went into it, and the discussions through the bicycle pedestrian groups, how that should go. And the elevated walkways, I noted last time I went up to Mineta Airport, San Jose Airport, these long areas that really make you conscious that it's not just a speed bump, but that elevation makes it a different space. And so I agree that's a very nice way to make it less intrusive visibly, and to encourage both the kids to understand where they are and cars to know where they are. But also that this roadway, this portends the beginning of the consideration of access to the Parkway area is very exciting to see that kind of mindfulness in the board and all the contingent groups that are working on it, that we bring it forward. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for a decision.
Madam Chair, I'll move that our board would consider the draft agreement with the City of Hollister and San Benito High School District, that we direct staff to complete the temporary closure agreement negotiations with other agencies, the CEQA and the public engagement process, and return with a formal approval to consider the temporary closure, and delegate to the CAO approval authority to facilitate a tentative offer of dedication with the school district, with San Benito High School District to the county.
Motion?
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations to staff for all their hard work.
Shirley's hard work.
And I'll ask our council, we will be going into closed session. If for some reason we think we're going to take longer than expected, we will come back and announce that and then break for lunch, but we'll move as if we're going to get done in time to go to lunch. Okay, council?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Board of Supervisors will now adjourn into closed session to discuss agenda items number 22, 23, and 24 on today's agenda. Agenda item number 22 is to confer with real property negotiators regarding property located at 5381 Fairview Road. That's APN 017-130-004, located in Hollister, California. The agency negotiators are Joe Horwedel, Interim Public Works Director Arman Nazami, Assistant Public Works Director James Ridingsward, Director of Health and Human Services Ray Espinoza, CAO Matthew Granger, County Counsel, Barbara Thompson, Assistant County Counsel, Shirley Murphy, Deputy County Counsel, and Sarah Fontanos, Management Analyst. The negotiating parties are Larry Drury on behalf of Go Kids. Under negotiation is the price and terms of payment. The authority to meet can be found in California Government Code Section 54956.8. Agenda item number 23 is to meet and confer with legal counsel regarding existing litigation under subdivisions A and D1 of Section 54956.9 of the Government Code. The case in question is the Center for Biological Diversity versus San Benito County et al., filed in the Superior Court of California in the County of Monterey under cause number M123956. The case, the real party in interest is Citadel Exploration, Inc. And finally, agenda number 24 is to meet and confer with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation and the initiation of litigation pursuant to subdivision D4 of Section 54956.9 in one case. Thank you.
Okay, we will adjourn to closed session and come back to announce during open session. Thank you all.